everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jay and Kim, for having me here. My name is Kirsten Albers-Fiedler, and I'm a law associate and legal engineer at OpenLaw. And what we're doing at OpenLaw is we're creating a legal layer on the blockchain. So using OpenLaw, parties can automate the creation and management of legal agreements and seamlessly transfer blockchain-based assets in a legally enforceable way. So blockchains themselves are extremely useful for managing assets. This data structure creates an immutable record of who owns what and at what time. So we've seen blockchain's ability to manage assets with Bitcoin and Ether, but continuing on in 5, 10, 15 years, we're going to see more and more assets managed using blockchains. So non-fungible tokens issued through smart contracts can represent unique assets, such as real estate, IP rights, and stock, and so on. So smart contracts can turn these assets into the equivalent of emails, and that really offers the potential for entirely new business models to emerge. So using smart contracts, assets are able to be transferred in a more efficient, more cost-effective, and more expeditious manner. But there are some drawbacks and some limitations, for example, are that smart contracts are self-executing, and that can cause commercial risk, and they can't represent every single contractual promise, and developing decentralized applications are still quite complex to do. So at OpenLaw, we're solving these issues. So what we've created is we're building tools to support peer-to-peer contracting on the blockchain. So OpenLaw's protocol is, so what we're doing is we have legal agreements that are able to be edited using our domain-specific markup language, and that turns contracts into computable objects. So once those agreements are signed, the agreements trigger smart contracts in a secure private execution environment on the public blockchain. And then the evidence of state of those agreements and the digital signatures are cryptographically hashed on the blockchain. And public and private APIs allow third parties to integrate OpenLaw's protocol into their respective systems and build blockchain-based applications. So basically what we're doing and what we're trying to move toward is a network-driven approach. So initially, OpenLaw is going to be completely free for all users to use, and the purpose of this is really to encourage collaboration and build community around the system and really in the larger legal community. So we're building a repository of legal agreements and deals to encourage the legal community to work together to create standardized legal agreements that other attorneys and clients can ultimately utilize. So we have the ability to fork and create separate channels for specific documents, such as incorporation documents or employment agreements, or for specific individuals or businesses. And so right now we're collaborating with financial firms, law firms, and others to create these agreements on OpenLaw. And the eventual goal is to integrate outside data, so for example, oracles, into the agreements and create APIs, so third parties will be able to integrate our protocol into their respective systems. So I know we heard a little bit about the access to justice issue, and it is our hope that the community and cost savings that result from our platform will help to make possible a world in which every single human will have the ability to have access to a just legal system. So right now, I'm going to go through one example of how we showed the transference of assets on our platform. So in this example, the protocol was used to show an end-to-end real estate transaction. So for years, many in the blockchain community have kind of discussed the possibility of recording land records on the blockchain. So in our demo, we wanted to show how the OpenLaw protocol could be used to manage, automate, and streamline the property ownership, that transfer, to reduce costs and show significant improvements in tracking the chain of custody, reducing fraud and so on. So in the demo, we modeled the property we tokenized the property, and we modeled that after the ERC 721 non-fungible token standard. And really, tokenizing property and other assets and using blockchains can really take a process that lasts months and weeks and turn that into days or even minutes to actually achieve the same goals. So for this demo, we actually partnered with an Australian law firm, Coors Chambers Wethgarth, to build an end-to-end real estate transfer. So in the demo, as you can see on the PowerPoint slide, the seller and the purchaser agree to the terms of sale on a standardized contract using the OpenLaw platform, and then the parties digitally sign that agreement. Their signatures and the state of the agreement is hashed on the blockchain, and then key variables are submitted to a smart contract to initialize the sale of the property. And then after the payment transfers, the seller finalizes the transaction, and then the purchaser receives that tokenized property, and that transference of the property is also recorded on the blockchain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a short clip to kind of show you guys a little more of how this was actually done.
This user interface will be a portal to allow us to interact with the land registry and demonstrate how OpenLaw allows for tokenized property to be sold through a standardized legal agreement that interacts seamlessly with an Ethereum smart contract. We're assuming that the property to be transferred exists and has been recorded to the land registry. The property's unique string identifier can be used to look up details about the property. We see the property's address as well as its owner's Ethereum address. Let's go to the sale of land contract template. As you can see, this agreement contains standard terms that you would come to expect in such a transaction, including a description of the property, purchase price terms, and financing terms. When we look at the markup language in the source, we see the block of code that will trigger the land registry smart contract to initiate the sale transfer after the agreement is signed by the parties. We can see that the smart contract is deployed to this address. As part of the interaction with the smart contract, OpenLaw will pass several key parameters entered by the parties: the Ethereum addresses of the buyer and seller. These will allow for the distribution of the tokenized property in the escrow funds. Next is a string identifier that is unique to the property based on its physical address. There's the total purchase price of the property, the deposit amount from the buyer, and the loan amount a third-party lender will provide. To see how this all works, let's fill out the fields and execute the contract. Now most of the fields have been completed, and we'll fill in the rest and highlight the key parameters that we just covered. The Ethereum addresses of the buyer and seller have been entered. You notice that the seller's Ethereum address matches the address of the owner recorded in the land registry. Now we'll enter the property's address. You'll notice that the markup language returns the corresponding unique string identifier that is used to distinguish properties in the digital land registry. The total purchase price of the property will be 5 Ether. The buyer will agree to pay 2 Ether in a single deposit prior to settlement. And a third-party lender will fund the remaining 3 Ether immediately prior to settlement. So now that the fields are filled in, we can send the contract off for review and signatures. OpenLaw streamlines this process by allowing you to enter the signatory's email addresses here for distribution. The parties then receive links to view and sign the agreement. Let's see that in action. The first party is already logged in, so we are directly prompted to sign the agreement. Once the agreement is signed, a cryptographic hash of the agreement is created and recorded to the Ethereum blockchain. We can see the record for each signature made. Now let's have the other party countersign. After both parties sign the agreement, OpenLaw will automatically trigger the smart contract to initiate the property transfer. After this interaction is complete, we can see a record of this transaction on the Ethereum blockchain. The address here pertains to the address that our smart contract has been deployed to. Now let's see how the state of the property has been updated in the land registry. We now see that the property is pending sale and includes all the relevant information for the transfer, including the buyer's Ethereum address, the purchase price, the deposit amount, and the loan amount. The escrow balance refers to the amount being held by the smart contract with respect to this property.
Okay, so you could see that when the contracts are sent to the different parties, they receive an email and they can review the agreement, edit it, send it back and forth to the other party. And then when they sign it, that's cryptographically hashed on the blockchain. So for this, at this point, this sale of that property is actually pending. So what's happening is that the buyer needs to fund the loan with 3 Ether, and then you have the bank putting or I apologize, the buyer has to put the funds in the escrow account, and then the bank would then fund the loan for the additional 2 Ethers, so then the purchase price would be met, and then the seller can complete the transaction. So at that point, the sale is complete, and you can see that the Ethereum address that's there is the buyer's Ethereum address, and if the parties want to, they can take that property ID, go to the digital land registry, put that in, and you can see that the updated owner of the property is the buyer of that property, and it lists the address there. So please reach out to us through any of these channels. We're happy to talk. I'm happy to talk with any of you guys afterwards, and thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, OpenLaw.